I wonder today, are you Buddy the retail elf or a Grinchy Scrooge? How do you deal with this Christmas music and decorations the week before Thanksgiving, the month before Thanksgiving? We've had a little bit of a distraction up until the 6th, but now we're dividing ourselves among other lines, right? Whether we approve of Christmas decorations and music before Thanksgiving or not. I wonder where you sit. Are you diving in and relishing the music and decoration already? Are you fighting back against the season's expansion and creep? I don't know about you, but our household is divided. Claire will have none of it. She even claims to not even like any of it to begin with. Katie, on the other hand, is all in. And yesterday she even wore her full-on Christmas garb with twinkling lights and all. You know, some people don't actually have a choice in this matter. If you are involved in professional planning for seasons, you have to engage this stuff ahead of time. Retail planning began a long time ago. They look forward to the day after Thanksgiving as traditionally the day they finally make it into the black and out of the red. That's why it's called Black Friday. Ministry planning certainly has to happen ahead of time. I'm already involved in planning for Advent and Christmas and pulling things together. And so we find ourselves in this moment setting the stage long before opening night. This will be a familiar phrase for those in theater, where much planning and effort is invested before the opening of the show itself. There's casting and rehearsal time to be put in, memorization of lines and construction of stage sets and costumes all begin weeks and weeks before the actual show. As a matter of fact, I keep thinking to get involved in our local theater, but the problem is by the time they announce that the show's coming out, they've already got weeks of planning in, they've already done their casting, and we already know what's happening. So I find myself falling behind in that area. I wonder who else amongst you, we've mentioned retail. I think we have some retail persons here, we've mentioned ministry, but are there others of you out there who have to engage in Christmas planning long before the season starts? Yeah? Music teachers as well. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, there are those of us who have to begin setting the stage long before opening night. Do you realize that Advent is only 2 weeks away? It is a season of anticipation and preparation. That's the whole meaning of the word Advent. It's a looking forward to. It's an eager anticipation. And so we're setting up Christmas while we prepare for our Community Life Thanksgiving meal. This Wednesday night we'll have a free meal. Come and join us if you like. Last year we had a number of people who said, you know what, we're going to be alone, and we decided not to do the big meal, so we just came on Wednesday night. First United Methodist is having a Thanksgiving meal on Thursday. They have an RSVP thing, so you would have to contact them. But here we just had our holiday bazaar, and so we were setting up Christmas stuff even while we were preparing for our Community Life Thanksgiving meal. And think about, again, the strangeness in my family. My mom and dad have just purchased Bev, their big escape vehicle, with which they will again be departing the snowy north for Florida. And as a result, and they are out here, as a result, we have this new tradition in my family called Thanksmas, or Christgiving. I don't know which one works better, but we have this craziness, like we can't even wait for Black Friday. We have to have Christmas gifts for my side of the family on Thanksgiving Day. And so in all of this, we're engaging in the Gospel of Luke, as you have said, and we're stepping into a path. If you want to get deeper into Luke, we've got a Bible study, Wednesday night Bible study, after community life, or the men's Bible study following that on Wednesday nights, and we're journeying through the Gospel of Luke together. And uniquely, we have 4 Gospels, don't we? There are 4 Gospel writers who chose distinct places to begin in the good news. This whole thing is about the Gospel good news, isn't it? And yet we have 4 different accounts, and they all start at 4 different places. And I think of the cartoon meme that's going around. It shows Jesus sitting at, have you seen this one? Jesus sitting on a rock, and there's a crowd before him, and he says, "Now listen closely, I don't want to end up with 4 different versions of this later." Well, we got 4 different versions of it. Mark, which was the first gospel written, sets up with John the Baptist in the wilderness and the baptism of Jesus. Skips right past the whole nativity story. John is similar, except that while John sort of begins with the baptism of Jesus, he really begins back before the beginning of when there was no time, back in the beginning when the Word was God and the Word was with God. Matthew is perhaps a little more familiar to us. He sets up with the genealogy, that long genealogy that is a nice transition from the Old Testament to the New, and the birth of Jesus. But we come to the Gospel of Luke, where we find the most setting of the stage, the most setup with foretelling of John and Jesus' birth. We come even before the birth of Jesus, and we have before the birth of John, and we have the story with Zechariah and Elizabeth and the setting of the stage. And it's kind of like, in Luke, it's kind of like everyone preparing for our craft bazaar yesterday. Luke is kind of like all of the crafters who were working weeks and weeks before the bazaar preparing things. And we had a doorbell ring just yesterday, and Betty shows up at the door, and Betty and Katie celebrated together winning a beautiful knitted Afghan with the tickets. And they had sort of joined together and put those tickets on those Afghans and prayed together, and so they had their little celebration. But the Pearls group who made that Afghan spent hours and hours working toward that joyful little celebratory moment. Luke is like a theater troupe, setting the stage for a big performance. Theophilus and Zechariah and Elizabeth and Gabriel are all opening players in that opening act. And the temple and Jerusalem and first century Israel all make up the setting which is the stage where we're going to tell the story. The point of preparation, Advent, if you will, Advent, the season of preparation, is probably the most significant season we celebrate in the church, even in human history, ever. It's an event foretold for thousands of years. Do you realize that Advent and the coming of Christ was foretold all the way back to Genesis 3? It's an event more profound than any other human event before it. It is an event no less than God's self entering into our human reality. And so we experience good news in Luke's Gospel prologue. In the prologue leading up to the nativity and the birth of Christ, Luke invites Theophilus into a transcendent reality. Luke expresses that this is no myth that he is telling. The story of Jesus' birth is not a myth, but he locates it in a place and a time that is appropriate so that Theophilus can know that this is a transcendent reality and not mythology. Gabriel, the angel, invites Zechariah and Elizabeth into a story of restoration and dignity. Did you hear those words from Elizabeth at the end of our reading? How God has heard her and restored her to dignity. How often it is, or especially was, for a woman to not be with child. and the community turns a judging eye. And yet, Gabriel invites Zechariah and Elizabeth into this restorative story. In fact, God re-invites all of humanity back into a dialogue and a journey together, and makes the trip all the way here, from heaven to here, to restore our redemptive relationship. So maybe if this is true, maybe it's not so bad that we start Advent at Thanksgiving. Maybe it's okay if we have a little bit of Christmas music tangled up with Thanksgiving. Because Luke's gospel prologue sets the stage for amazing divine grace. And gratitude is really the only appropriate response to that divine grace. There's a place, I think, for each of us in this great narrative of divine grace. Even if we're Elizabeth, waiting a lifetime for God to answer us. Even if we're Zechariah, beginning to doubt that God even hears or is able to answer our prayers. Even if we're Theophilus, finding ourselves with questions that need to be answered. So as we take time to pause, and we'll pause this week, won't we? We'll be busy with making food and families getting together, but we'll pause to count what we're thankful for this week. It's a tradition in our culture to pause and be grateful. And while we do so, let us remember what we are looking forward to as well. As Advent approaches and we step into a season of anticipation, let us realize that not only has Christ come, but Christ is coming. May it be true for you.